And joining me now is John Elliott, Republican strategist and former National Security Council spokesman under President Trump. John, welcome back. Great to see you.
Great to see you, Tracy. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, a lot to cover. I want to start out, though, with what Owen mentioned about this limited no-fly zone that some people are calling for. Can you talk to us about what that would mean and also the implications of that?
So the implications of that and what NATO's concerned about is that would be actually NATO planes flying over different areas of the Ukraine. It wouldn't necessarily be the whole country. That's why they call it a limited no-fly zone. But it's separate from what the Ukrainians would be doing with their own jets, and that's what we can talk about in a little bit, where there were some jets that were coming from Poland and were going to Ramstein to be then handed over. The difference there is that it's NATO planes that would be enforcing this limited no-fly zone in the Ukraine or in parts of Ukraine, that these people signed this letter, these foreign policy experts signed a letter encouraging that. That's going nowhere, though. That was admitted that is a risk that NATO doesn't want to take, because the difference is that NATO is providing Javelin missiles, it's providing anti-tank missiles and others directly to the Ukrainians, but the NATO forces are not pulling the trigger on those. They're just supplying the weapons. And the question is that in a no-fly zone, limited no-fly zone, it'll be NATO pilots enforcing that over certain areas of the Ukraine, and that's a bridge too far for the administration at this point.
Yeah, I want to jump off of what you said about supplying those Javelin missiles. A lot of people have been asking, well, we're supplying those missiles, why not air defense? Why not the planes?
Well, that's exactly right, and that's what people who are arguing that they should supply the Polish MiGs directly to the Ukrainian fighters, because they know that the pilots can use those planes. They're trained up on those. They're Soviet-era weapon systems or planes in this case. But there is not a big difference, because, once again, the real question is that who is actually pulling the trigger, who's flying the planes. It would be Ukrainians, just like they are the ones that have their possession of the Javelin missiles, and in this case, they'd be flying those same planes.
Yeah, there's so many concerns. Another thing that's come up is biological or chemical warfare on the part of the Russians. I know the other day, Senator Marco Rubio had asked Undersecretary of State Victoria Nuland if Ukraine, if they had chemical or biological weapons, and she said they had biological research centers, that the U.S. was concerned that Russia may somehow take those. The thought that went through my mind when I heard that is, if we knew those were there and we knew it was very likely that Russia would go into Ukraine, why wasn't something done before to secure those facilities?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, Tracy, is that we knew that we had months of warning. Really, it was right after Afghanistan and the debacle in terms of our botched exit of Afghanistan that then Putin started to really amass troops on the border. So we had probably about at least 5 months, 6 months, about 4 or 5, possibly even 6 months before the actual crossing of the line of departure that those forces did to move into Ukraine. So target number one would be, are there biological or chemical facilities there? They weren't producing weapons according to all the facts that we know right now, and that's what the Russians are saying, hey, these were weapons facilities. That's not the case from what everybody in the administration says. They say that's laughable. And in fact, China has jumped on that. And that's really kind of a load of goods if China is accusing us of having the weapons facilities when we know, in fact, that they were one of the only ones in the world that actually had that. But anyway, back to your question, is that if you have if you have fair warning, months-long warning, you should look at what your big targets are going to be, and if there are biological or chemical facilities, research facilities, then you should go ahead and shut those down and remove those as very easy targets for, even psychologically, for Putin to say, hey, they're using chemical weapons, they're using biological weapons, when really it's his forces that are, let's say, bombing a plant that has some biological products in it that they're researching. So it's a complicated question, but it's something that they should have planned for.
Yeah, we have less than a minute left, but just want to ask you, what is most concerning for you about all this, and where do you see this going?
Okay, the most concerning is clearly that Biden is a step behind the rest of NATO, or certainly a step behind Boris Johnson and a step behind the German premier. So in this question, Biden is on, whether it's on the SWIFT sanctions, whether it's on these aircraft that Poland wanted to get into the Ukrainian pilots' hands, and others, and even on Javelin missiles, he was behind the power curve under the Obama administration. They provided ponchos and tents and no actual weapon system. That was started under President Trump. So I know we've got no more time left, but the bottom line is that there's a lot that should have been done, and Biden needs to step up, and he needs to answer and become a leader, not just a follower when it comes to what NATO's doing over there.
Yeah, running out of time, but John, I hope you'll come back and talk about this very important subject.
Lots to talk about. Thanks, Tracy.
Yeah, thanks so much, John.